Major Nidal Hasan is headed for military death row at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas.
Family members whose loved ones were killed or injured finally felt up to sharing their feelings about the Fort Hood mass murderer. They showed great strength after he was sentenced to death and honored the memories of their loved ones. They also used terms like coward to describe Hasan.
Fox 4's Brandon Todd at Fort Hood right now with some of their reaction. Brandon?
Well, right, Heather and Steve. I mean, one of the biggest things you see from these family members is sheer relief. When you hear some of that testimony, you really get a sense of what the last 4 years has been like for them. And it's probably safe to say none of them will ever completely heal from what happened that day back in 2009. But today they finally got some justice and were able to put at least this part of the tragedy behind them.
Nidal Hasan is a coward and an unrepentant murderer.
Death. It's what the Fort Hood victims' families have been waiting to hear from a jury for nearly 4 years. Major Nidal Hasan shot and killed 12 soldiers and 1 civilian back in November of 2009. And now the mother of Specialist Jason Hunt can try to move on as the memory of her son lives on.
His idea of going to Iraq was not to harm anybody, but his idea was saving other people's lives. He always said, I would take a bullet for anybody.
Hasan, who continually showed no emotion during emotional and tearful testimony from family members of the people he murdered, again was unfazed. Reuters reporter Jana Pruitt was in the courtroom when the death sentence was read.
Hasan looked at the president of the panel, looked straight at her for the first time, really, that I'd ever noticed him looking. And as she read the sentence, he sat and looked at her, and as soon as she finished, he turned and looked at the judge and never looked back again.
The closing argument presented by prosecutors was compelling, outlining the life and death of each of the 13 people murdered by Major Nidal Hasan. Colonel Mike Mulligan spoke about the appearance that Hasan is deliberately tanking his defense to get death in hopes of becoming a martyr. Mulligan told jurors, he is not giving his life, we are taking it. It is not his gift for God. He is not now, nor will he ever be, a martyr. He is a killer, a cold-blooded murderer.
Colonel Mulligan argued that Hasan, quote, should not be punished for his religion. He should be punished for his hate.
When it was Hasan's chance to make a closing argument, his last chance to craft any sort of religious manifesto, he simply said, I have no closing statement. The families left in the wake of his murders had plenty to say.
We are tired. We are hurt, but we are resolved. Justice has been served.
As his family, we have the duty and the honor of continuing CW2 retired Michael Cahill's legacy.
A weight has been lifted off of my shoulder. He has been held accountable for his actions, and the panel gave him justice.
Now, on Monday, it will be a very special day for these families. U.S. Senator John Cornyn, Congressman John Carter, and Congressman Roger Williams will all three introduce new legislation that would honor and support the victims of the Fort Hood shooting. That bill will be called Honoring the Fort Hood Heroes Act. At Fort Hood, Brandon Todd, Fox 4 News.
Grant Siebold Jr. is retired Marine Corps colonel with more than 30 years' time in the military as a judge advocate. He also served as trial defense and prosecution counsel as well as a legal advisor. He knows the ins and outs of military courtrooms. Let me ask you, Grant, first, any question Hasan wanted what he got today?
He got what he wanted, obviously, to have the death sentence adjudicated. And in his mind, you know, he's seeing the big shining light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a long road before he gets there.
And the virgin's waiting for him, probably. Let me ask you, and the prosecutor, Colonel Mike Mulligan, addressed that, I think. When Brandon Todd outlined it, let me read again what he said. He said, he will not now, and he never will be, a martyr. He is a criminal. He is a cold-blooded murderer. Would you have worried about maybe some juror backlash, you know, about knowing that Hasan's possible martyr wish and not wanting to give that to him? Do you think that's what that statement was about?
I think he was just being cautious, for lack of a better term. I think you've got a panel that's made up of 9, you know, colonels, you know, and 3 lieutenant colonels and a major, you know, and so these are senior officers. They're not going to make rash decisions. Right. They're going to do what's right.
I just know as humans sometimes, if that guy's guilty and he is a bad guy and he wants this, I don't want to give him anything he wants. And I don't know, that just kind of preemptively maybe just making sure.
And typically in military members, you don't see
don't
sort
think
of
like
that visceral type reactions.
Okay, very good. I think everybody thought at some point that we were going to see some kind of outburst, something political, something in the some final statement somewhere, and he just said he didn't have a closing statement, and that's it. Were you at all surprised that we never saw anything like that out of him?
I was kind of pleased.
Okay.
If nothing else.
Yeah.
I mean, at least he didn't make it worse for the victims and the public for having to listen and rant about things. So from that standpoint, he's glad it's over, we're glad it's over, and now it's time to move on.
There's an automatic appeal that kicks in. What's that process, and how is that different from, a state?
Well, what's going to happen now is that first off, the convening authority, who's the commanding general of Fort Hood, has to approve the findings in the sentence.
Within a couple of weeks, something like that.
Well, you could take longer, but they've done probably daily transcripts every day. This record's ready to go. They whisked him out of there just as soon as that trial was over. He's already up in Leavenworth, and they want this thing off their desk.
Yes.
So in 14 days, he's going to approve that. There's no doubt about it. And then the appeals process starts, automatic appeals to the Army Corps of Military Review, automatic appeal from that to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Armed Forces, automatic appeal from that to the Supreme Court of the United States. And then last but not least, the sitting president of the United States, whenever that happens, has the final authority as to either impose the death sentence or commute it to life imprisonment without chance of parole.
Let's talk about, and I want to talk about the timing and how long that takes as we transition a little bit. Have you been to Fort Leavenworth?
I've not been there. I'm familiar with how it looks, and I've sent people there.
There you go. Not warm, fuzzy place.
No, not a warm, fuzzy place. It is a disciplinary barracks. It's a military barracks. When he gets there, he's going to be Private Hasan. Everybody still has a military rank while they're in the facility, and everything is done, according to military discipline. Now, in his situation, because A, he's a paraplegic, and B, he certainly probably is a potential, danger either to himself or from other prisoners due to the nature of his crime, he may have been in some form of segregation most of his time.
Right. I read somewhere a description that he's seen grass for the last time.
Probably that's true.
A lot of cement and concrete.
A lot of cement in the exercise area and things of that nature.
Hasn't been a military execution since 1961. I know he becomes the 6th person on the military death row. There was one person who was set for execution in 2008. That was tabled, put on hold, and it hasn't come up since. So what is the timing here? How long could this take?
Your guess is as good as the next person's. I'm guessing 4 to 6 years.
Minimum. Will this move along any quicker since it was high profile? Does that work within the military ranks?
No, this won't have anything bearing on that. To the extent that he has no participation in it and has no desire to stop the process, it might move it along. But then there'll be a lot of public interest and personal interest groups that will intervene and try to prolong the process.
Got it. Last question, we got to wrap it up. Is the sentence going to get carried out?
I hope so.
Good enough. Grant, thanks for coming.
Okay.
Good to talk to you.